Recap. Tales of Herding Gods, Chapter 521. Chapter 1. Before him stood a towering figure, broad as a mountain and steady as an ancient pine rooted against the winds of time. Chinmu ascended the stone steps of the sacred hall, each footfall echoing faintly, while the chest behind him clattered like a restless spirit, unwilling to be left behind. With a calm flick of his sleeve, he raised his hand, and the chest halted obediently at the threshold. Its four legs retracted, settling upon the ground with a soft, obedient thud. With a drawn-out creak, the lid of the chest slowly opened, like the jaws of some ancient creature awakening. From the narrow gap, the dragon Qilin cautiously peeked out. His gaze swept across the surroundings, and what met his eyes was a field of tombstones stretching endlessly in silent rows. A chill crept into his bones. After a moment of hesitation, he crawled out with great difficulty, his belly pressed low against the ground, as though afraid to disturb the solemn air. He followed behind Chinmu with careful steps, his tail drooping but not daring to touch the earth, as though even the dust here was sacred. Not a single sound escaped his throat. Then suddenly, pain. Something stepped squarely upon his tail. The dragon Qilin let out a sharp, strangled cry, his entire body bristling as scales and fur stood on end like blades drawn in panic. Chinmu turned his head, his gaze falling upon the dragon Qilin, who had already stuffed both paws into his own mouth, desperately stifling the sound that had nearly escaped. Only then did he manage to silence himself. When Chinmu shifted his gaze further back, he saw the chest creeping along behind them, moving with exaggerated caution, as though it too feared the wrath of this sacred place. It was that very chest that had trampled the dragon Qilin's tail, and nearly scared him out of his wits. A dull ache throbbed at Chinmu's temples. For a moment, he felt the urge to drive the two nuisances away with a kick, but this was no ordinary place. This hall carried the weight of countless ancestors and the dignity of history. To act rashly here would be disrespectful. Suppressing his irritation, he allowed them to follow, though his voice carried a sharp warning. If you two dare to fool around again, I'll turn one of you into firewood and the other into dinner. Only when he approached the figure ahead did Chinmu realize the disparity between them. Standing behind the man, he found himself shorter, though only by an inch. The difference was slight. And yet, the presence before him felt like a towering mountain. It was not height that made the man seem so immense. It was his aura, his bearing, the invisible weight of countless years and battles pressing upon the heart. This was the first ancestor human emperor, the same figure whose stone statue Chinmu had once seen in Little Jade Capital. You should be the 36th human emperor, correct? The first ancestor tilted his head slightly, his gaze falling upon Chinmu. He appeared to be a man in his 30s, with a full beard and a robust frame. His presence radiated reliability, like an unshakable pillar that had endured the storms of ages. I am the 37th, Chinmu corrected calmly. Village chief is my master, the one who raised me. But this is my first time coming here. His gaze drifted forward, and he froze, momentarily stunned. Only then did he realize what the first ancestor had been looking at. Before them stretched countless rows of bookshelves, arranged in solemn silence, each one filled with innumerable books. The Hall of Human Emperors was vast beyond expectation, yet it held none of the grandeur Chinmu had imagined. There were no golden ornaments, no jade decorations, no towering statues of gods or displays of luxury, only books. Endless rows of books. Chinmu stepped forward slowly, reaching out to pick up a volume. The characters written within were unfamiliar to his eyes, yet from between the strokes, he felt something deeply familiar, a sword will, sharp and resolute. It was a book written by Village Chief. Within its pages were detailed analyses of the techniques and divine arts of High Heaven's Star Sovereign Qiao. Each move, each skill was dissected, its flaws laid bare, its weaknesses recorded with painstaking precision. Chinmu gently returned the book to its place and picked up another. This one recorded the strengths and weaknesses of Jade Sovereign's techniques and divine arts. As he flipped through more volumes, he realized that most of them were records, experiences of confronting the gods of high heavens, insights carved from battles fought with life on the line. Among them, Chinmu even found the sword picture. A great stack of scrolls lay before him, detailing how Village Chief had cultivated his sword picture. The path, the intent, the mood behind every sword technique. Each was recorded with meticulous care. It was clear these had been prepared for future generations. Chinmu moved on to the second bookshelf. Here, the words seemed to burn with boundless fervor. The energy within them surged like erupting volcanoes, brimming with passion and unyielding spirit. These books were most likely written by human Emperor Qi Kang. They, too, detailed the techniques of the gods of high heavens and the methods he had devised to counter them. Alongside these were records of his own techniques and divine arts. Yet within his writings, Qi Kang had left a bitter remark. Anyone who chose to cultivate his techniques would be a fool. He had never defeated the gods of high heavens. To follow his path would only lead to the same inevitable failure. There was disappointment etched into every word. So this is why, Chinmu thought silently. No human emperor ever cultivated their master's techniques. Instead, they chose to create their own. In that instant, he understood the hearts of those who had come before. They were all failures. They did not wish for their disciples to walk the same doomed road. And yet, the techniques they left behind were the culmination of their lives' efforts. They desired a successor, but not one who would inherit their failure. Perhaps this was their greatest regret. These books, the first ancestor said as he stepped forward, his hand gently brushing against the spines of the volumes, are all strategies devised to overthrow high heavens. His voice carried the weight of time. They regarded high heavens as their greatest enemy and devoted everything to defeating it. But in the end, they all failed. He turned his gaze toward Chinmu. You may remain here for a time. Study them. They will aid you in finding your own path. Chinmu shook his head. The gods of high heavens are mostly dead. The four sovereigns have already fallen. High heavens is no longer the great threat it once was. His voice was steady. These books, they are no longer of much use to me. My goal does not lie with high heavens, nor in conquering it. The first ancestor's eyes narrowed slightly, surprise flickering within them. Then what is your goal? Chinmu met his gaze directly, his voice solemn yet burning with conviction. My goal is to tear apart this false sky, to reshape this unjust world, to advance through reform, and to build a flourishing era that does not belong to founding emperor. His eyes blazed as he raised his voice. First ancestor, this is your goal as well, is it not? No. The first ancestor's eyes dimmed. He shook his head slowly. My ideal is not as grand as yours. Time and enemies have worn me down. His voice was calm, yet hollow. You are still young. You still have drive, but one day, time and your enemies will wear you down as well. His tone grew colder. When that day comes, you will return to this hall. You will leave behind a book, just like the others. You will record your failures and place your hopes upon your successor. Each word struck like a hammer. You will become a failure, just like them. His voice turned cruel, cutting deeper with every sentence. You will build a straw hut and sit within it, your hopes extinguished. You will not wish for anyone to walk your path, yet the burden of the human emperor will force you to find a successor. Within that hut, you will weep in regret. You will hate the master you once respected. You will carve your own tombstone, engraving upon it the record of your failures. A sneer curled upon his lips. You will feel unworthy of a grave, unworthy of facing your ancestors. And then, you will die, becoming another skeleton in a straw hut. Chinmu's eyes widened in disbelief. The heroic and wise figure he had once imagined shattered before him. Do you still wish to be the human emperor? The first ancestor asked, his voice colder than winter frost. Let me tell you the truth. There has never been a human emperor in this world. He continued, his voice filled with bitterness. When I saved my people from disaster, I already knew. I was a failure. I saved them because I was weak. I could not bear to watch them die. And because of that, I became a deserter. He laughed, loud and hollow, pointing toward the countless graves shrouded in mist outside the hall. I fled. All I thought about was escaping that hell. I did not fight alongside them. I ran, alone. His laughter grew manic. I have thought about it countless times. If I had stayed, I would have died with them. That is the only answer. His eyes burned. They died, and I lived, and so I became the human emperor in the eyes of the world, he roared. The people revere me because I led them to safety. But what did I truly do? I turned them into prisoners. He raised his hand toward the heavens. Even the sky is false. This world is nothing but a cage, a prison from which none can escape. Everyone within it is a prisoner. I did not save them. I merely delivered them into the prison of the gods. Human emperor? He laughed bitterly. There is no such thing. His aura surged violently, his hair rising as if stirred by a storm. He stepped forward, and the oppressive force of his presence drove Chinmu backward again and again. Abandon that foolish dream, he thundered. Cast away your burden. You are not the human emperor. From beginning to end, the human emperor has been nothing but a lie, a murderer who delivered the people of the world into the cage of the gods. The pressure was suffocating. Chinmu struggled to breathe, forced to circulate his vital chi to resist. Then why? Did you return? Chinmu forced the words out, his chest compressed, his breath ragged. Why did you come back to erect tombstones for those who died? Why bury them? Why place their weapons beneath their graves? The first ancestor's aura stilled. He lowered his head. I returned because I carry guilt, he said quietly. I know I am unworthy of being the human emperor. I came to atone. Chinmu stared at him. Do you truly have no hope left? No, came the cold reply. Young man, abandon your dream. This farce of the human emperor should have ended long ago. Chinmu lowered his head. Then, after a moment, he raised it again, a radiant smile spreading across his face, bright and unyielding like sunlight breaking through clouds. You failed. They failed. But I have never failed. His voice was clear. If you cannot be the human emperor, then I will be. The first ancestor sneered. And what makes you think you are capable? My surname is Qin. My ancestor is founding emperor. I carry the bloodline of Carefree Village's Qin family, and I am the overlord body. Chinmu's voice rang out like thunder. Is that not enough? The first ancestor tilted his head, scorn unchanging. You cling to titles and honors, he said coldly. So what if you descend from founding emperor? He too failed and has not appeared for 20,000 years, and the overlord body. I have heard of its legend, but never its achievements. His gaze sharpened. You are nothing but a foolish boy, a mere child. His sleeves swept outward. Let me shatter your illusion. He struck. Chinmu reacted in shock, raising his arms to block, but the force felt lighter than expected, leaving him momentarily stunned. Then, the first ancestor's true power erupted. A wave of divine force rippled outward, shaking the shelves as books flew into the air like leaves caught in a storm. Do not destroy these books, Chinmu roared, anger igniting within him as he struck back with his fist. Behind him, a colossal Buddha manifested, surrounded by 14 layers of heavenly gods and Buddhas, forming 14 radiant halos. Technique of Great Thunderclap Monastery. Trivial tricks, the first ancestor said indifferently as he shattered the attack with ease. His fists slammed into Chinmu's chest. With such skill, you cannot even protect yourself, let alone these books. Chinmu was sent flying backward, yet his body dissolved into a shadow, diving into the ground. The first ancestor stamped his foot, shaking him out. With a flick of his finger, vital chi condensed into a sword, stabbing toward Chinmu's brow. With such meager ability, your future holds only death, he said with disdain. You too are a failure. Rage surged within Chinmu. He gathered his chi into a sword. With a pointed finger, countless vital chi blades clashed, their ringing echoes filling the hall. Books tumbled from the shelves, shredded into fragments by the sword chi. Chinmu's eyes burned as he watched them fall. Do not destroy their blood, sweat, and tears. Then stop me, the first ancestor said with a cold chuckle. If you cannot defeat me, you are nothing but another heap of trash. Translator, Atlas Studios. Editor, Atlas Studios. Several more ancient tomes were reduced to ruin, and Chinmu's fury surged like a raging inferno, breaking past all restraint. First ancestor human emperor treated the painstaking efforts of the past human emperors as though they were worthless dust. The lifelong labors of village chief, human emperor Qi Kang, and countless others were being crushed and discarded in his grasp, as if they had never held meaning. Chinmu's vital chi trembled violently before erupting forth. Scarlet vital chi roared outward, transforming into a boundless sea of blood, within which countless corpses of gods and devils drifted and sank, rising and falling like remnants of a forgotten war. The second form of village chief's sword picture, sword of founding emperor Sea of Blood. Yet his sword technique diverged from that of village chief. He had woven 18 sword forms into this single strike, surpassing the original 14. Though his artistic conception was inferior and riddled with flaws, the sheer might of his sword skill had already exceeded that of village chief. However, at the instant he unleashed it, First Ancestor's figure rose from the blood sea like an undying specter. His sword tore the sea apart, cleaving open a path for himself. The drifting corpses of gods and devils twisted and danced, transforming into his allies as they lunged toward Qin Bang! 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 Streaks of blood sprayed across Qin body as he was blasted backward. Each wound came from the precise, merciless thrusts of First Ancestor's sword. He crashed violently into a wall of the Hall of Human Emperors, then slid downward before collapsing onto the ground. The dragon Qilin roared in fury, its voice shaking the hall as it leapt forward to attack First Ancestor Human Emperor. The man's 5 fingers shifted subtly. As they spread, countless runes burst forth, forming a runic seal 3 yards wide that sealed the dragon Qilin's gaping maw. The Qilin true fire within its mouth was instantly suppressed, and with a casual sweep of a sleeve, it was flung into a wall. The chest surged forward, its lid wide open, attempting to devour the man whole. First Ancestor Human Emperor casually tapped it with his foot, sending it flying toward the dragon Qilin that was still sliding down the wall. The two collided and tumbled out of the Hall of Human Emperors, rolling down the long flight of steps. You should understand it by now. Your so-called overlord body, your so-called lineage of the founding emperor, nothing but hollow names. First Ancestor waved his hand, and a bookshelf rose into the air. The books spilled out, and with a flick of his sleeve, the accumulated efforts of generations of human emperors transformed into fluttering paper butterflies. His expression remained indifferent. These books are no different from you, empty and worthless. No matter how much effort you expend, it is meaningless. So why struggle? Why continue to fight for such a laughable dream? Qin slowly rose to his feet. His 10 fingers danced across his body, sealing the wounds that riddled him. Without hesitation, he charged toward First Ancestor once again. Just because you couldn't do it doesn't mean I can't. Seal! Forbid! Fix! River! Mountain! He rushed forward in a frenzy, unleashing Human Emperor Kongxian's spell with words. The word seal appeared beneath First Ancestor's feet. The word forbid trapped him within. The word fix manifested before his face. The word river coiled around him like a raging flood dragon. And finally, the word mountain descended to crush him from above. Spell with words, 5 words executed simultaneously, was the wondrous creation of Human Emperor Kongxian. Yet the 5 words shattered one after another. First, Ancestor Human Emperor's palm descended, as though overturning heaven and earth. Qin roared, his movements fierce and unyielding. His tendons coiled like colossal dragons around his bones. His spine arched like a soaring true dragon overlord body. This was the technique he had cultivated within the true dragon's nest, fused with the overlord body 3 elixir technique. It elevated his corporeal body to an unprecedented height. It was his strongest corporeal body divine art. His right hand turned to yang, his left to yin. His palms rotated to meet First Ancestor Human Emperor's descending strike, yin-yang heaven-flipping hands. This was the technique of Third Ancestor Human Emperor, though Qin had only learned its introductory form. Yet, through his own comprehension, he had grasped the profound secret of overlapping palms. At this moment, he overlapped pure yin and pure yang palm forces. Yin and yang erupted simultaneously, their fusion amplifying the power to an explosive degree. Boom! Qin staggered backward. His yin and yang forces were shattered before they could fully manifest, obliterated by First Ancestor's overwhelming strike. He was blasted away without resistance. The 3rd generation Human Emperor was a failure. If you use his techniques, your fate is the same. First Ancestor Human Emperor slammed his palm into the ground. The shockwave lifted Qin into the air uncontrollably. In the next instant, a mudra struck him down, smashing him back onto the ground. Clang. 2 beams of divine light shot from First Ancestor's eyes, striking Qin. The gaze was so powerful it seemed capable of snapping his spine, scorching the surrounding earth red hot. Qin flipped upward and dashed away, evading the assault. He moved through the hall like a phantom, divine light gathering within his eyes. 2 beams shot forth, colliding with First Ancestor's gaze. Bang! His divine eyes lost. He was pinned against the wall once more. You've met him? First Ancestor Human Emperor withdrew his gaze and walked to the bookshelf of Third Ancestor. He pulled out a book. It was Third Ancestor's technique. So now you know that the technique he spent his life perfecting is completely useless. It should have been thrown away long ago. This book isn't even worthy of wiping filth. Qin Mu slid down the wall, blood trickling from the corner of his mouth. Watching First Ancestor tear apart the books, his heart suffered a heavy blow. This was the first time he had encountered such a formidable opponent. First Ancestor fought within the same realm, both wielding the 7 Stars Divine Treasure. The only distinction lay in Qin Mu's 7 Stars Divine Treasure having merged with the 6 Directions Divine Treasure, eliminating the barrier between them. While First Ancestors still retained the separation, by this measure alone, Qin Mu's vital qi should have far surpassed his opponent. Yet in battle, reality was entirely different. First Ancestor was flawless, without a single weakness. Though he had not merged his divine treasures, his corporeal body far exceeded Qin Mu's. He was like a youthful true god. His fists, legs, muscles, skin, hair, bones, and tendons had all reached realms far beyond Qin Mu's limits. His 5 viscera and 6 bowels were extraordinarily developed. His heart beat like a colossal bell, instantly circulating qi and blood throughout his body, accelerating the flow of his magical power. His breath was deep and enduring. With each inhale, wind and clouds surged, allowing his lungs to store immense volumes of air. His kidneys mobilized his body's strength, maintaining perfect stability at all times. His 5 viscera and 6 directions corresponded flawlessly with the 5 elements and 6 directions, merging seamlessly with his divine treasures. His eyes resembled the sun and moon, perfectly integrating with the 5 elements and 6 directions to form 7 stars. His understanding of the realm had reached a level Qin Mu had never witnessed before. His dantian burned like a grand furnace, similar to Mute's, a blazing sun that powered his body, maintaining peak condition at all times. This corporeal state was like Xing'an's, flawless. In truth, it was even more terrifying. His primordial spirit had reached an unimaginable height. The primordial spirit was the spirit embryo, the manifestation of vital Qi's soul. Qin Mu had always taken pride in his own primordial spirit, believing it superior to others, stable and powerful. At the 6 directions realm, he could already let it roam freely through the void. He had even cultivated both body and spirit together, founding the Primordial Spirit Guide. After training within the 6 directions realm, his primordial spirit had grown immensely, unmatched among his peers. Even Xu Shenggua's was slightly inferior. Yet compared to First Ancestor Human Emperor, it was insignificant. First Ancestor's primordial spirit and corporeal body were perfectly unified. The movement of his heart triggered corporeal attacks. The movement of his spirit manifested as divine arts, and his will fused them into one. This made his attacks unimaginably fast, relentless like a storm. Qin Mu could not withstand. Every strike, whether corporeal or divine, was perfectly integrated. He was the embodiment of a perfect divine arts practitioner. He was the youthful form of a true god. Yet such a being had once fled in the face of calamity, abandoning his comrades during the final days of the founding emperor era. If even such an existence had chosen to flee, how terrifying must the enemy have been? Stop tearing, Qin Mu gasped. First Ancestor continued ripping apart the book, scattering the efforts of Third Ancestor into fragments. What is the point of keeping them? Their creators were useless, so their works are useless as well. They only take up space. Why not destroy them? You are no different. No matter how far you cultivate, you will still become useless. His expression turned cold with disdain. He walked to Second Ancestor's shelf, pulling out another book and tearing it apart. They treated High Heavens as their rival. High Heavens? They are merely dogs. Yet they couldn't even defeat dogs. What counterattack could they speak of? You are also useless. You cannot even defeat me. What ridiculous ambition, what ridiculous dream. Go home, find a woman, and bear a child. Qin Mu lunged forward with a furious roar. The spirit embryo at his brow merged with his soul, forming his primordial spirit. Recognizing the source of First Ancestor's strength, he immediately applied it to himself. I told you not to tear them anymore. His speed surged drastically, his palm force becoming vast and terrifying. Yet in the next instant, he was once again blasted away. Great, overarching Heavenly Stars palm force. Qin Mu charged again. Boom. He was sent flying once more. Bang, bang, bang. Heavy, muffled impacts echoed through the Hall of Human Emperors. Only after a long while did they cease. First Ancestor Human Emperor looked at Qinmu, who struggled to stand and shook his head. You still refuse to give up? You are different from the previous human emperors. They were deceived by their masters and forced into the role. If I had granted them permission to refuse, they would have abandoned it gladly. But you? You were deceived as well, weren't you? Qinmu staggered upright, sealing his wounds. He wiped the blood from his lips, breathing heavily. Village Chief didn't deceive me. He told me from the start that there are no benefits to being the human emperor, that I would be hunted, targeted by all, constantly in danger. Then why do you still stand? First Ancestor frowned. Why persist in something with no benefit? Are you a fool? Qinmu grinned, his teeth stained with blood. If no one does it, then hope will vanish forever. If you won't do it, then let me do it. Because you are a fool. First Ancestor Human Emperor attacked, each strike heavier than the last. You're a fool who doesn't know when to give up. You'll only throw your life away. There will be countless enemies like me in the future. If you cannot defeat me, how will you face them? My mistakes should not be inherited by future generations. Give up now. Boom! Qinmu endured the blow, staggering backward. First Ancestor's attacks rained down like a storm, each strike as heavy as mountains, as sharp as blades. Give up! Give up! You must give up now. Qinmu was knocked out of the Hall of Human Emperors. Before he could rise, First Ancestor was already beside him. With one mudra for heaven and one for earth, he hurled Qinmu away again. Qinmu crashed between two burial mounds. In the next instant, First Ancestor appeared, stepping on his chest. Have you given up? Qinmu grabbed his ankle and threw him aside. Rising once more, he charged forward with a shout. The title of Human Emperor is not something you claimed for yourself. It was bestowed upon you by all races. You cannot take it back. The Human Emperor is an illusion. Let me shatter the illusion in your heart. With cold eyes, First Ancestor seized Qinmu's throat, lifting him into the air. Qinmu struggled, wrapping his limbs around him like a giant python before flipping him over. Bang! He was blasted into the air again before crashing back down. First Ancestor rose and strode toward the straw hut. Sneering, he said, "It is these useless people who created this illusion, that the human emperor must sacrifice and struggle for the masses, that drove hot-blooded youths like you into reckless action. I will destroy their remains, turn these fame-seeking skeletons into dust." He stormed into the nearest hut, shattering Second Ancestor's tombstone into powder before grabbing the skeleton. You dare! A gale surged as Qinmu roared. First Ancestor turned, raising his palm to meet the incoming strike. It was a blood-soaked fist, trembling with boundless fury. Boom! Lightning exploded across First Ancestor's face, sending him flying. The straw hut shattered. A bloodied figure caught Second Ancestor's skeleton, placing it carefully before bowing in respect. Then he shot forward like an arrow, chasing First Ancestor into the sky. If you cannot do it, then I will. I can! A thunderous crash echoed in the distance as a gray cloud surged into the heavens.